That is paycheck money for these bajillionaire NFL owners.
Yeah, pocket change.
Coins.
And so basically, they only dinged someone on this when the Rooney Rule was brand new and everybody was paying attention.
And it sounds like that caught a precedent. Just skirt the rules the Jerry Jones way, not the Detroit Lions way.
Right, exactly. It absolutely set a precedent that went beyond the league, too. Like, this is the NFL we're talking about. It's one of the most powerful and influential media corporations in the United States. It's the most popular sports league in the country, and it's not even particularly close. So when they went around patting themselves on the back, for coming up with the Rooney Rule, corporate America took notice. Gus told me about this guy who became the NFL's Rooney Rule evangelist. His name was Robert Gulliver.
He was a former human resources executive at Citibank and Wells Fargo. And so he would sort of travel to symposiums and business conferences, some of them that had nothing to do with sports. And he would, in one conference, he called it the NFL's most significant export besides the game itself.
Companies like Xerox and Facebook and Intel even got shouted out by the Obama administration for adopting their own versions of the Rooney Rule. Gus said that the Rooney Rule was really attractive. The company's caught up in bad PR because of some scandal involving race.
Right. You could see why they glom onto it, though, right? Like, it doesn't really cost anything to implement. And as we heard, it doesn't necessarily have to change anything either.
Yeah, and to your point, Lori, public companies have to file paperwork with the federal government, about what's going on with their companies. Gus found out that after George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis in 2020, the number of public companies who mentioned the Rooney Rule in those mandatory filings skyrocketed. So 8 companies mentioned the Rooney Rule in 2019, which was the year before his killing. Since his death, and up to last September, there have been 268 mentions of the Rooney Rule.
Oh, like skyrocketed.
Skyrocketed. And, it's too soon to tell whether these corporate versions of the Rooney Rule will work better than the NFL's, but, the diversity experts that Gus talked to say those plans suffer from the same fatal flaws in their design.
Some of the experts that I spoke to actually said that they thought that implementing the Rooney Rule in a troubled company or a troubled industry that has problems with discriminatory hiring can actually have a negative effect because, the corporation is able to say, look, we fixed it.
He said that for the NFL, the glowing press from the Rooney Rule allowed them to turn the page from some really big scandals they were facing. There were things like the revelation that former players were suffering from debilitating brain injuries from their playing days, and that the NFL knew about it and it covered up the extent of how bad it was. There were player strikes and referee strikes. There was the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. A bunch of really well-known players were arrested for domestic violence. Like, Gus said the Rooney Rule was unalloyed good press for the league, so they really leaned into it.
I think that the NFL looked like it was on the vanguard of equal hiring, and that it had this sort of like piece of goodwill that they could tell that showed, hey, we're social leaders. We've created a model that corporate America can seize on and that can help better the whole world. So I think that they are always looking for good news, and that for a while looked like really good news.
But Lori, this year, the Rooney Rule has expanded to include some of those original provisions suggested by Johnny Cochran, like giving and taking away draft picks, all that kind of stuff. And it got me wondering, what if the Rooney Rule that the NFL had been spending all this time patting itself on the back for actually was this huge achievement for diversity and inclusion? What if it really did work?
Well, if we know that the league is 70% brown players and there's 32 coaches in the league, 70% of that would be 22 coaches of color.
You are really good at this back of envelope math, bananas. What?
But honestly, Gene, I don't know what that would really change.
Yeah, so I asked Dominique Foxworth the same question. What would be different if most of the coaches in the NFL were black?
Maybe this will surprise you, but I think the answer is nothing. The argument, at least in my view, is not about getting black people in these positions of power, because that's going to break the system, and then we'll have a better overall system. That's not what's going to happen. That's never what happens.
What Dominique is getting at is the big existential diversity, equity, and inclusion question. What systems and institutions are people trying to diversify, and to what end? there's a quarterback who plays for the Miami Dolphins. His name is Tua Tagovailoa, and he suffered this horrifying seizure on the field during a game last year.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You don't even have to watch football to have heard about that incident. It was everywhere. It was so horrible, Gene.
It was the worst. And the coach who sent him in knew that he had suffered a concussion 5 days earlier, knew playing him would put him in serious danger. And that coach is one of the league's 4 black coaches. And he was just as defensive and irritated when people questioned his decision to do that as any other coach would have been.
So, like, I fight for black coaches. I fight for the idea of black ownership and black general managers and black quarterbacks. Like, I fight for a fair, like, playing field, but I'm not under the illusion that black people in those positions are suddenly gonna be like, you know what? Now that I have the power, let me give it up.
See, like, this is what I meant at the beginning of this conversation, Lori. Like, these are all the things I'm gonna be thinking about when I'm just trying to watch the Super Bowl this weekend, because my team, my beloved Eagles, are gonna be in the Super Bowl. There's gonna be all kinds of stuff in the game that should make me really happy, but being an NFL fan and knowing everything we know about what it costs and who it benefits, it just makes me feel really dirty.
Football is only popular in America. It's insanely popular here because it kind of is America. Like, and from the racial dynamics to the class dynamics to the cronyism and nepotism that, like, benefits a select group. Like, it is America.
And on that, enjoy your nachos.
And that is our show.
Coming up, Life Kit has a guide for keeping your head on straight when you're trying to find a new job. Life Kit host Mariel Segura has more. Hey, Mariel.
Hey, yeah, this week on Life Kit, we're talking about job hunting. Whether you got laid off or you're just looking for a change, the process is generally not fun.
So, what do you think about what you heard?
There's a lot of truth to some of that stuff. There is a lot of cronyism and nepotism in the NFL, we know that.
Yeah, I'm kind of pissed, and you know I'm pretty much a right winger, but I'm kind of pissed about Wilkins not having the.
Yeah. But the thing about this stuff is, like, it's the stuff we don't know. Like, we don't know if Steve Wilks would have gotten that job if he had the exact same performance and was white. Like, we don't know that. Other people will claim that, oh, he would have if he was white, but, like, how do they know? Exactly.
The only thing we know is that different people might be a genius when it comes to hedge funds.
And it's not that I don't like Frank Reich. I think Frank Reich was a great hire, but, like, you can't help but wonder sometimes about some things.